Thank you. Oh, thank you so much. Do you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. I am absolutely delighted to be here. I am glad to be here. And you've already given the lead in. This is our first time sharing a gig. And let me tell you, it's quite thrilling. It's an honor to be here. And this morning, yesterday's Science of Mind reading, part of my morning spiritual practice is to read Science of Mind magazine, which I've been doing for decades. My late husband was a Science of Mind practitioner. So I am well acquainted and quite comfortable and very pleased to be here today. Where I live, there is not a center. In fact, it's 300 miles away, so you can well imagine I'm not attending on a regular basis. But yesterday's, one of the readings came from The Alchemist. Life is eternal. We have stopped for a moment to encounter each other, to meet, to love, to share. And that is what I am here to do. And I will move around, if that's okay with you, and carry my notes with me, which I use to cue me. Do you remember Pollyanna and her glad game? Eleanor H. Porter wrote a book in 1912. I actually have a 1913 book. Pollyanna was the main character in this book. She was a little girl, and her parents were missionaries. And while they were overseas, her mother died. And they were very poor back in those days. Maybe they still are. But anyway, she had very little in terms of material things. So she was forced to come to the United States to live with an old aunt who was embittered by loss, and it was tough. But what she and her wonderful father did with their great creative minds was to create something they called the glad game. And what they were doing, of course, was looking for something to be grateful for in rough circumstances. She became seriously ill, and there's more to that story. And we'll revisit her in a minute. By the way, Haley Mills did the film, Pollyanna, and some of you are nodding your heads, so some of you have seen it. What is gratitude? We talk about it, we pray about it. It's defined beyond being just simply thankful. It's outward directed. It's a deep and complex acknowledgement of all the good things in life. I think of it as catalytic, dynamic, energetic. There's a new definition. I've been talking about gratitude for about 10 years now. There's a new definition that I'm really happy to see online. It's a definition that really is about active involvement with regard to gratitude. And here it is. It's simple. Readiness to share appreciation for and to return kindness. It's been studied. The other thing that I think it gives us is a sense of the great mystery, a connection to the great mystery. It's been studied extensively in the field of positive psychology. I mean, you can read books about it if you'd like. What we know, and research shows us, is that it improves mental and physical health, which is important in the work that I do, to know that. It increases our energy, gives us more life energy. It boosts our immune systems. We're healthier, by the way, physically and mentally, when we're grateful. Grateful people are less stressed. By the way, we sleep better. We're more optimistic, and we have more coping strategies for life transitions. And we all go through lots of those. And as we get older, there are even more, and more losses. It's a potent topic. Do you know, 10 years ago, when I Googled it, I got over 9 million hits, and I thought, holy buckets, I have hit pay dirt. I thought that was a really big deal. Guess what it was just the other day? 83,400,000 hits if you go to Google. I mean, shall we say it's potent? Lots of us are thinking about it. Neuroscientists again, out of Science of Mind magazine, those great doctors who don't feel like doctors, Waldman and Newberg, I mean, they're talking about all kinds of great things and giving us ways to work with these brains of ours. Well, they're plastic. It's called neuroplasticity. It's one of the best bits of information I've read in science of late. In fact, we can change the neuronal pathways in our brains to improve our well-being. I worked in a rehab hospital with lots of brain-injured people, and I want to tell you that I learned firsthand that taking a diagnosis that says, well, you've had a stroke or you've had a traumatic brain injury and you're not going to get any better after 6 months is baloney. I've met people who keep improving. So this neuroplasticity, and now I'm on a little bit of a soapbox, this neuroplasticity thing is great news for all of us. We do change our brains, and gratitude is one of the means to do that. Gratitude, and I think it's kind of magic. I know it's neurochemistry, but I kind of like magic because I think it is. Gratitude slows us down. Oh, we're all so jazzed and busy and rushing, to and fro. It also softens us. It kind of rounds out the edges. I grew up in an edgy family, in case you haven't met my brother. I'll talk a little more about that. We need gratitude. Maybe that's why I was drawn to it in part. You know what, though? It also can form the core of a compelling spiritual practice, and that's part of what I want to talk about today. And by the way, I know I have this much time. I am loquacious, but maybe not quite so much. As my notes said, maybe only the Scrooges among us, and we know there are Scrooges among us, and sometimes we're kind of Scroogey, would disagree that gratitude is a great thing. But what about when life is hard? There isn't a person sitting in this room who has not had some tragedy, multiple losses, tough stuff. Life gets hard. What about then? We struggle mightily then with our circumstances, and they cast a shadow on our trusted ways of being. We've got them. We've got the trusted ways of being and our active practices. But then something happens, and we lose clarity and direction. Life doesn't feel so good then. Even our faith is shaken. Maybe especially our faith gets shaken, and that really throws us. And then this is the icky part. We catch ourselves resenting other people's good fortune. Anybody ever do that? I know you're lying if you say no. No. So we're walking around underneath this cloud. Our heads, oops, did I do something? No? All right. Our heads are under clouds. And then we're brittle. Do you ever feel brittle during those times? You're just kind of like you're going to break in a million pieces if somebody looks at you wrong or says the wrong thing. And well-meant friendship counsel and ministerial counsel and, frankly, professional, the work I do, it sounds like hollow platitudes. It doesn't work. And we feel empty. And then we feel guilty because we can't do what we know how to do. We know all the ways to do it. We've got the books, we've got the inspiring people, and we know. We come here, this is great for an hour and a half. And it carries over, yes, but sometimes it feels hollow. Boy, I'm a downer. Though, in these dark nights of the soul, we say, what is there to be grateful for? Is it possible during these times, especially these times, that we really need to kind of cut through the complexity? Because life is complex, and when things are falling apart, the list gets very long. Is it perhaps important to acknowledge that we're deeply confused, we've lost our way, doggone it, we're in a bad place. But instead of I call it a muddle, getting lost in that muddle, we cut through it and we go for simple, as simple as we can get. And we intentionally, simply decide to choose gratitude. We set aside complicated questions, including faith questions like, why me, why now, what's my future going to look like? We just surrender to what is so. Here we are. It's not good. Let's surrender to that. Science of Mind magazine again this month has an article about surrendering. I haven't read it yet. But what we do then when we surrender is we bless what is so. We bless it, which sounds kind of, whoa. And by the way, I know about this, speaking not from a lofty place, but from lots of life experience and a lot of loss. If it's a stretch, we do it anyway. We bless what is so. We ask, what is good in this? What can I learn from this? Because always, always, always we can learn something. And we say, what is right within this? There's something to be learned here for me. Then we must tune in prayerfully, and that's where this kind of magic, this coming together of people who hold you closely and have your backs and feel your hearts, this is where you do that. You tune in prayerfully and with trusted others. And you try to figure out, what's my roadmap? What's my roadmap through this? When we bless, which is about gratitude, when we bless a situation, it's not denying that it has a sorrowful, difficult reality. We're not denying that. That's often not helpful. Instead, we are claiming, we claim that there is it's hidden probably, but there's an inner reality. And we invite a higher, finer working out of God's grace, I call it. We put up our sails, because it's always there, and we grab hold. So I'm going to say it again. When you bless a situation, you're not denying that it's hard or sorrowful. Not at all. But what you are inviting is the deeper reality to come up. And you put your sail up and you grab God's grace. And you ask for the good for all concerned to surface. Within this process of inviting gratitude, I want to say to you that there must be, and I mean the word must. I don't do a lot of shoulding and musting, but there must be an undergirding, and I use that word intentionally, intention of loving kindness to yourself. You must do that. We have to be kind. It helps to be curious and to open and invite. That's important too. But we must be kind because it's fragile. It's a fragile process of blessing what is hard and inviting gratitude. Something as simple, and this is what I'm going to invite you to do, something as simple as before bed, you can have a journal, you can have a little 3-ring thing, you can have something that's absolutely gorgeous. I have a beautiful journal given to me by a friend I use. You start a gratitude journal. And what you're doing, and if that frightens you, don't even use that word. Take a piece of paper, write down 3 things that you're grateful for. And frankly, it might be a new toothbrush the first night. I'm serious. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what it is. It's that you do it. What happens, I don't know. Here we go, I'm doing magic again. I'm talking about magic, but it softens us. Somehow shifts start occurring. And you'll start to feel a difference pretty quickly. Now, we know 21 days starts a new habit, right? I mean, we're all steeped in knowing that. And in fact, that's true. But I promise you, after a week that you start doing this. Now, I've been writing gratitude journals since Simple Abundance, the book back in the 1990s. She was big on that. I can never pronounce her last name because I think it's Scottish. Sarah Ban, breath knock is what it looks like. But anyway, it's Bronick or something. Anyway, that little book got me going on gratitude journals. And now, guess what? This is the other thing. I love looking online to see, who's doing this. Am I just thinking this up or is it happening? So how many of you are on Facebook? Yeah? Gratefulness.org. Look them up. You don't have to be on Facebook. Look them up. But on Facebook, if you like them, what you will get is a daily picture, beautiful photography, and a message of gratitude. And it's just that little thing that can get you going. Another thing, I looked on the iPhone apps. Oh, good heavens. 166 possibilities under gratitude, including a journal. So if you're in love with your iPhone, which I am, and I try not to be on, and I work with children, by the way, in high schools, and they're on all the time. And so nonetheless, there's something to be said for our phones, our smartphones. You can get a gratitude journal there. And then, as we think about starting a practice, do you remember Rhonda Byrne of The Secret? Have you talked about The Secret? We have heads nodding. The Law of Attraction. Well, she's written 2 other books. I think the second one is The Power, which I have not read, and then there's one called The Magic. And guess what it's about? Gratitude. There's a 28-day practice, and it looks. I think I'm going to do it. I haven't done it yet, but I think I'm thinking about it. No, I'm just. Yes.
Are you sure?
No, I'm not sure. I'm thinking about it. I'm thinking seriously about it. I've got a handout for you. It's a list of gratitude strategies. In fact, if I can talk you into starting tonight, writing 3 things down, then you can slowly, and I mean start simply, add slowly, a couple of things here and there. One of them is dancing in the kitchen. I just danced, sort of, in church. So let's return to our friend Pollyanna. With her glad game, she changed her world. Made it back from serious, life-threatening illness and changed a whole community, including her elderly aunt, who was no longer embittered at the end of the book. Optimism gets a bad rap in our society. Do we agree? You watch the news, which I don't do, by the way. I have a life partner who informs me nonetheless. Have you, and then out of his mouth comes, because he's reading the papers online. Sometimes I have to go in another room. Optimism gets a bad rap. There's lots of bad news. And we can be called unrealistic if we're optimistic. Kind of naive even. Do you have people, if you walk around, come on, you're science of mind people. We're upbeat. We believe in changing our lives. Do you ever have any friends who kind of go, they roll their eyes? Are you listening to the wrong news? So it gets a bad rap, right? Do you know that, and then of course, we're looking for silver linings. Do you know that being called a Pollyanna, we're all old enough, right? I'm in my 60s, I don't know, a lot of you are younger, but when you're called a Pollyanna, you are foolishly pretending that inside of this ridiculous set of circumstances, something good could come. It is not a compliment, let me tell you. We've learned, though, that Pollyanna was ahead of her time. Research shows us optimism, gratitude, shifts life. It shifts it. You can't argue with it. There's too much good research. It's not just, floofy conversation I'm having here. So I'd like to ask you to join me tonight. Coming here has been so good for me. You know how you do things for a while and then you kind of let them drop? Well, that gratitude journal was really good looking, but it was sort of at the bottom of about 5 other books that I'm thinking about reading. The top one I am reading. So I pulled that baby out and I thought, okay, girlfriend, if you're going to talk about this to this group of people, let's get back on this wagon. And I did. Oh my gosh, it's only been about 10 days. I promise you my life feels better. And I've had some stuff, thorny stuff going on. It has shifted me again. But what's fun about reclaiming it is that I remember all of that, and it's almost like, I think that neuronal thing up there has clicked back in and gone, oh, she's back. She's come back because it's working faster. So would you please, don't make any excuses now. I don't want to hear about it. Tonight, 3 things only. Piece of paper, pencil. It doesn't have to be fancy. And then see if you can add some other things as life starts to move you in a new direction. Adversity in life is a given. Gratitude is not. It's a choice. Adversity is a given. Gratitude is not. I think that we must, I'm a grief counselor. I know about loss. I know about supporting people through it. We must acknowledge, we must grieve our losses. But side by side can stand, and I think should stand, gratitude. It helps us move through our grief journeys. And I think of loss and grief as a life companion. I don't think we get to the other side of it, especially as we age. And I don't think that's a bad deal. We learn so much about ourselves and about the people in our lives. I think an attitude of gratitude is an inside job. And as I said, it's a choice. I also have come to believe over these 10 years of talking about this and practicing it, that it's a faith statement. It's a faith statement. I have come to believe that probably the most important 2 words that I can say about my faith are thank you. Thank you. So I'm going to lead us in a prayer. We're getting a lot of